Morning, everybody. I was late putting the music on for you. I apologize for that. Where are we? It's 8:30 live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or as StreamYard calls it, question mark, X, Instagram. We are good there. Let's get that music off. Sound is good enough. Hey, Ashley, thanks for joining us on Facebook. Thanks for the sound check-in. I think we are good to go. Welcome, everybody. January 2025, episode 323. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. As I was logging in this morning, there was an X post from DOGE, D-O-G-E, the Department of Government Efficiency, with Elon Musk and formerly Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he's still Vivek Ramaswamy. I just think that he's going to move over to Ohio and run to be governor there. I don't know, maybe two chefs in the kitchen. Maybe it was too much for DOGE. Anyways, they're doing the government efficiency stuff for Trump. They're going to cut back on expenses and people and regulation. You'll recall this was a big buildup to the election and Musk's participation in that with Trump. And the commitment was that they would be transparent and that they would post what they're doing and their successes and presumably the odd failure on X. Well, I was logging in this morning, getting ready for the show, and there was a post, a picture of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. The Office of Personnel Management, have no idea what they do, but the website was down, had an error message, not available. DOGE was promoting that as a success. But what I really took from it is the U.S. government Office of Personnel Management website. Their logo is a big OPM. OPM. If you're from the financial world, you know that means other people's money. That's what immediately my brain goes to. And I love the fact that the U.S. government has an OPM website because that just seems so appropriate. Netflix released their earnings today. Huge quarterly news, huge quarterly earnings. And this is going to drive the markets today. Expect a good day in tech, at least early. We'll see what happens later in the day. And I have not checked markets. Didn't have a chance as I was logging in, but big day, or big earnings release for Netflix. This was a quarter ended December 31, 2024. I believe revenue was up 16%, driven by live sports streaming. You remember that fake Tyson, what was the other dude's name? Anyways, that fight, you can tell me in the comments. I'm having a mental block on the YouTube guy there. But that fake fight, well, they signed up 18.9 million new customers from their live streaming, and that puts them over 300 million subscribers, and that is more subscribers in a quarter than at the beginning of COVID, when we all made sure that we had renewed our subscriptions or signed up for Netflix. And so knocking it out of the park. That should drive markets up. Nothing exciting on Bitcoin, nothing exciting on the Trump meme coin, but I just raised that because I thought it was funny. A reporter yesterday asked Trump during a press conference if he thought it was appropriate and will he continue to hawk products. I've raised that on this show before, to sell products during his presidency, to which Trump said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you've got these meme coins. And he said, oh, I don't know much about those. I just agreed to it, what have you. And the reporter said, You made billions. You made billions on the launch of this coin. And he said, oh, really? I didn't. Yeah, well, that's nothing. That's nothing. I think he literally said to these guys, pointing at Larry Ellison and the guy from SoftBank, who we'll talk about in a second, he said, that's just peanuts to these guys. And he just brushed it off as if he didn't know he made billions. Come on. Come on. Look at, I'm not saying this coin was launched for the explicit purpose of corruption. I'm just saying if you were going to be corrupt as a politician, this might be a pretty good vehicle. Just saying. Just saying. And I'm not accusing him of that, because I think that the motives are more pure, or at least one would hope. One would hope the motives are more pure. But if you were going to be corrupt, this might be a decent way to do it. So before the holidays, I think I told you on this show, I was introduced to and working with a company that, would probably be called a startup, except it had been a startup for a couple of years and wasn't getting much of anywhere. And I won't give you any details. He's a decent dude, and I don't want to interfere with people's livelihoods and their dreams and all that sort of stuff. But the general idea was that this fellow had a let's just call it a tech product, a high growth tech product that wasn't necessarily organically built. It was bought out of some other failed enterprise. And in his ownership, the pitch was it's going to be worth trillions, the biggest thing ever, which might be true. Probably could be true. But in the meantime, you're hearing this pitch that it's going to be worth all this money, and it's world beating, and we need to protect it, and here's all the things we're going to do. But in the meantime, there's no business, there's no customers, there's no staff, there's no funds, there's no anything, and there's no momentum. There's no progression in the project itself. And he's telling me his business, which has basically nothing other than this thing that he bought pretty much for nothing, is worth $200 million. I said, so you're telling me that if I bring you in $1 million to help seed this thing and launch and to get us from here to there, that $1 million is worth what, 0.5% of the company? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, what if we can't sell it at that valuation? What if someone brings you the $1 million to seed this thing, and they want 20% of the company? What if it's like a $5 million valuation en bloc for what we have right now? Should I just tell them to get lost? No. We should have that discussion. And so a project that, in my view, was stalled, lost, had no momentum, no focus, no execution, no real plan to speak with. And I was introduced to this deal by other people that I like. And I'm not picking on anybody on this deal, by the way. I see this situation over and over and over again with founders and with massive projects. And so I'm introduced to these people who have already invested a little bit of money into it, and there's no plan to get them their money back. There's no even real agreement on the structure of how the money went in. So it's a complicated, messy situation. And when that happens, and when there's no real leadership, people revert back to their camps, right? That's what happens when you have no leadership, no momentum. And when you have leadership and momentum created by leadership, you can start bringing these disparate, if that's the right word, camps together. In this situation, an investor, they want their money back. They don't trust in the dream anymore. They don't trust in the founder. You have a founder who has a dream, which I love. I'm always a sucker for that. But you have a founder with a different hat on who is also an employee, and he has to pay his rent. He has to, buy food. You have a bunch of former employees / co-founders who had to leave and go back and find jobs somewhere else. Excuse me, because they also have to feed their families. You have prospective customers. They're just waiting for, apparently, they're just waiting for this thing to launch. And so everyone's stuck. Everyone's stuck because nothing is happening. There's no momentum. Momentum, or lack thereof, is the death of a business. Winning momentum, positive momentum, is the solution to just about everything. There's a reason that this podcast, Mornings with Scott, is really derived from the Winning Momentum podcast which started on YouTube, and we may have to do some rebranding of all that stuff. But the point is, it's the Winning Momentum podcast, and the Winning Momentum methodology is part of my business course, which is available in the notes. You can link through to that. And one of the modules on the course is manufacturing, creating momentum, breaking through the logjam that I just described. And the way you do that in real summary is you start by communicating the big dream that has some sort of benevolence for humanity. You remember we talked before the holidays about the Elon Musk formula, and starting with the big dream, humanity needs to become a multiplanetary species. And so we're going to go to Mars. And that was sort of one of the big dreams that we talked about in that episode. You need to start with the big dream, and then you need to take a step down from that and work on executable visions. And you need to state values as part of leadership. And then bang, quick public wins. And with quick public wins, aligned with those values, aligned with that vision, you persuade people that things are changing. And that is how you manufacture your own momentum. Yesterday, we talked about the first day CEO move coined by Scott Adams. And we compared that to Trump and his hundreds, nobody knows how many executive orders. That is what he used, and is a great example in leadership for breaking a logjam, persuading people that change is coming, and generating momentum. Big headline in the Wall Street Journal this morning: CEOs launch war rooms, hotlines to cope with Trump's order blitz. JP Morgan Chase set up a war room. The law firm Fisher Phillips created an immigration hotline to help clients manage potential workplace raids. Manufacturers and retailers have teams working to soften the blow of potential new tariffs. The blitz of executive orders and memos from President Trump left business leaders, some still in tuxedos, that they wore to the White House inaugural gala, scrambling to make some of the sweeping changes to tax, immigration, trade, and energy policies. There's probably some shock and awe on day one, said Nick Studer, chief executive of Oliver Wyman, a management consulting firm. Trump is at the peak of his power now, and more will become clear as the administration gets into governing. What else? Another law firm focused on corporate clients launched a Trump executive order tracker on Monday. I was looking for that. I tried to find one of those for the show. I was using Perplexity AI to give me that information. And just nobody had a list. There was so much going on. Nobody could even keep track of a list of all the changes that were being made in real time. By Tuesday afternoon, this law firm had posted 32 blog entries summarizing what it believed were some of the most important orders and memos. This, my friends, is how you create momentum, and you can do that in your business too. Start with a big dream. In Trump's case, as a leader, he's been pitching the golden age, and everybody's up on stage saying, yes, this is the golden age. It starts today. Have values, America verse, meritocracy, right? Communicate those values, and then bang, quick actions and quick wins. That's how you generate momentum. That is how you affect change. You can do it in your business. You can start today. And the way you do that, because you don't have to be a first day CEO to use the first day CEO move, what you need to do is you need to stand up in front of your stakeholders, and you need to say, hey, things have changed. We've made mistakes, or we're not performing well enough, or the world around us is changing and we need to respond. Things have to change. Here's the new big dream. Here's the set of values we're going to adhere to. Bang, quick actions and wins right away. That's how you build team culture. One of the announcements yesterday was of Stargate. Did you see this? 3 of the world's most prominent tech companies are pledging they will pour as much as $500 billion. 500 billion. I heard this on Fox News last night. He said 500 million. Nope. There's a lot more zeros on that. $500 billion into building artificial intelligence infrastructure. I assume that means data centers and energy related to the data centers. And the latest high-profile initiative, time to start with the Trump administration. Thank you, Miki, however I say your username on Instagram. Thank you for joining us very much. And so OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, OpenAI being a code for Microsoft, SoftBank and Oracle and other partners will start a joint venture called Stargate. Who do you think came up with that name, Elon? To build the infrastructure, the companies are committing $100 billion to the venture and planning to invest up to $500 billion over the next 4 years. The first project will be in Texas. The $100 billion sum includes some of the previously announced projects, but a bunch more money as well. And the deal is massive, even by Silicon Valley standards. Underscores the extent to which tech companies and government officials are betting on AI as the future of the American economy. It shows how much tech executives want to broadcast their enthusiasm at the start of the new administration. Every one of these leaders that stood up in this joint venture, Larry Ellison, the guy from SoftBank, Sam Altman, they stood up and said, hey, this would not be happening under the old administration. So they give kudos to Trump for that. That, by the way, sorry, I was just looking at my notes and getting a little confused there. You know what? The way I prepare for these shows, I just cut and paste in different articles, and then I just kind of wing it as I go along. I'm sure most of you would say, yeah, no, we could tell that, Scott. I know you're just winging it. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes I just get a little bit lost. So that's a big win for the Trump administration. Even if it's symbolic, I think this money will be real. I think the impact will be real. I think the job creation will be real. There was some sort of reference of 100,000 jobs almost immediately being created out of this, and that's all cool. But then it just went on. Larry Ellison started talking. This is not just large language model stuff, by the way. Ellison went on to speak about possible medical applications, cancer vaccines, all sorts of, which of course sent social media ablaze with mRNA conspiracy theories, which may be true, by the way. Speaking of someone who was impacted by a vaccine, that's me. But they went on to talk about cancer vaccines and medical applications. And so it's dreamy stuff, but it's pretty cool. Also in the Wall Street Journal, talking about change, talking about being persuasive. The work in office executive order went out, I guess, yesterday. Maybe it went out Monday. I'm not sure which. So you can't work at home as a federal government employee now. Wall Street Journal, President Trump's pledge to upend the federal workforce began rippling through Washington on Tuesday after he moved to force government employees back to the office 5 days a week and weakened their job protections. In a number of federal offices, a sense of anxiety and confusion permeate these people. So you're sitting at home and you have a federal job and you have decent pay, you got a great pension, you got lots of extra, bells and whistles and medical insurance, and you work like an hour a day or a day a week and just hide and don't be productive at all. And now you're being asked to come back and you're like, I don't, how do I do that? How do I get daycare? I don't own a car anymore. I live in the middle of the country, where I just have a great lifestyle. I'm not living in Washington where this office is. And how do you park? I don't know how to get parking. Who's going to look after my dog? Like, there's a lot of issues going on here in the minds of these employees and creates anxiety and confusion. It permeated the atmosphere as employees parsed a flurry of executive orders and memos and handed down by the new administration. The workers' unions rushed to shield employees from the changes, with one filing a lawsuit over an executive order aimed at peeling back civil service protections. One employee's quote is leaving a lot of uncertainty that folks have never really had to feel. It's a 43-year-old guy in the Navy infrastructure somewhere. It seems like there's a lot of distrust in how things are working. You think that there's distrust on the civil service and the bureaucracy? Human resource managers across the government had to call recent hires with start dates after February 8th to tell them they lost their jobs. Managers fielded panic inquiries from staff over returning to the office and from transgender employees very much concerned about whether they're going to have their own bathrooms. Employees expressed concern over whether the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE teams would have security clearance to review sensitive information. What the hell is going to happen? This thing is chaos. And it goes on and on and on. This article, look at change is chaotic. By the way, does anyone think the Wall Street Journal articles are just way too long? They just go on and on and on. I need to find a way to edit those. It's the worst journal I can possibly imagine for length of article. They make their point in 3 or 4 paragraphs, and then but the thing is like 30 paragraphs long with different stories and different quotes, different narratives. Change is chaotic, folks. It's not. If it's not, you're not communicating change, and change and chaos bring a feeling of anxiety. If the employees don't feel anxiety, how the hell do they know things have changed? I'm not saying it's good. You don't want your employees to be anxious. You don't want them to be nervous. I'm just saying that's a necessary side effect of communicating change. You need to shake things up, and that is what is going on here. And don't forget, Elon Musk has his hands. Well, he is Doge. And remember when he bought X, when he bought Twitter, he cut 80% of staff. Now, he did that by forcing them in part to come back to the office. There are similarities here. He did that in part by communicating a new set of values, meritocracy, and you need to work around the clock and pull together as a team and a vision. And that's what we're going to do. If you don't want to do that, you should leave. And a bunch of people did. And what he did was he cut 80% of that workforce, basically brought the company to break even right away when it was losing tons of money because of the 80% of the workforce who were not being productive. And the business worked better. It worked better. It's a far better platform than it was. You may have your political, ideological differences with the platform and the idea of free speech versus censorship to stop fake information or whatever the hell that buzzword is for censorship these days. But you can't deny that the platform doesn't work better. It does work better with 20% of the staff, more or less. Well, part of that was just bringing people in and having them quit. But another part, which I don't think is talked about with this work from home, work from the office debate, there's all sorts of things that people miss. Like the debate, there was a debate on LinkedIn I saw, I think it was yesterday, someone did a post and said, hey, I don't care where you work. You can work from the moon or from the space station. You can work from a beach, wherever you want. I trust my employees to get their work done. Well, cool. Sinclair Range, my business, has been a virtual business long before COVID. But the reason for that is I'm completely phobic of paying rent, occupancy. So it's a real problem. I don't want to spend that money. I think it's a tremendous waste of money. But when we buy a business or work with a client that we're trying to affect change, do better, raise capital, I want everybody in the office. Everybody needs to be in the office. Why is that? It's because you can't create a team. When you want to affect change, you have to change culture. And changing culture means creating a team environment aligned along a dream, a vision, executable action items. You have to be able to see the wins, all the things that we've talked about before. Well, if you're not in the office, you can't do that. You simply cannot create that culture, that accountability, that sense of momentum virtually. It does not work. Elon Musk's counter to the idea of trust is, people can work from home with the trust, is a sense of fairness. Fairness, like blue collar people have to go to work. They have to show up every day. And you white collar people who are so privileged with your university degrees get to sit home and not show up for work every day. There's a sense of fairness. I buy that argument. I've used that argument. I've bought manufacturing companies, and I've had front office people that existed, interview front office people, and they're like, hey, we want in our package the ability to work from home. Well, no, you have a bunch of laborers coming in, working in the back every single day, showing up, even during the pandemic, showing up to work. You don't get to stay home and not show up to work. This is a team environment. Your job in the front office is to support the people in the back plant. That's what your job is. And you have to show up to do that. That was so I've used that argument before, but what's missed, and I don't want you to miss it in your businesses, is you need to find a way to create a team environment and change culture if you want to do business in your business, if you want to make change in your business. And if your business is just ticking along, it's doing fine, it's virtual, well, I'm not so stressed about it. But if you're trying to create change, if you're trying to create a winning momentum, you have to be there. You just have to be there. And another thing, by the way, for you younger professionals, you younger employees, the people that just graduated, they're looking for jobs, you are going to miss out by working from home. 80%, 90% of what you learn on the job is from your peers. It's from hanging out with your bosses. It's from going for lunch or going for a drink after work. You have to do that to progress in business. Having a work from home and having a 30-minute coffee at 3 p.m. With a coworker or with a superior to talk about whatever that has no social element to it whatsoever, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Other people show up and they go to work. You don't show up. You work from home. Who's going to get the promotion? Do you think it's going to be the gal that's working there every day and going for drinks and being social and being part of a team and supportive of the company? Or do you think it's the person who chose to work from home and just be isolated and quiet? I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing. Always Be Broke says, tips for hiring people who do well remotely. What do you look for? Asking for other real estate rent phobes. Oh, I don't always be broke. I don't really think of it that way. I'm looking for professionals who have worked, professionals being like if I'm hiring an investment banker or an accountant, I'm looking for professionals, executives that have worked in smaller businesses. That's the key for me. In other words, they're not a cog in a machine with a defined job description that they need to have output every single day or once a week or a reporting cycle monthly. I'm looking for people who survive in a more chaotic environment, who are willing to roll up their sleeves and do what is necessary without any visibility as to when they wake up this morning, what the problems are going to be. That's what I want. And if you find that sort of person, then you have somebody who's able to be more productive in a chaotic remote environment. That's just sort of correlates and has been successful for me. I never thought about it, but that's what I do. I don't really think about the virtual thing as a hiring. I think about the chaos, small business, roll up your sleeves, be almost entrepreneurial in your job thing. And then what you need to do, of course, is it's on you, Always Be Broke. It's on you to make sure that you are in front of these people as often as possible. I fail at that, by the way. Personally, I get too busy. I'm off on other deals or working with other companies, and these people get left on their own. But we create a team environment. We have a chat line set up for that. We actually use WhatsApp, and every sort of area, every employee checks in every morning, says hello. They're supposed to be reporting at night as to their progress. Anything you can do to create a team environment, and that's on the leadership. All right. Did you see Trump yesterday with the, this was just the art of the deal. It made me laugh. I can't find an article on this, so I'm not going to talk about it much. But with respect to TikTok, he says he's just musing. Someone asked him about the TikTok ban and why he changed his mind, because he used to be for the ban, and then he's against the ban, and he doesn't think it should be banned. And why did you change your mind? He said, well, I used it. So that was his excuse for that. Then he says, he talked to the majority shareholders. He talked to some of the control block shareholders of ByteDance, and he said they convinced him. He says, it's not Americans that told me this, it's Chinese that told me this, that is, if without America, the thing is worth zero as a business. And with America, it might be worth $1 trillion. So zero, he says, think about it, $0 to $1 trillion, depending on whether I issue a permit for this or not. He says, I think the US should get half. I think somebody should buy it, and we should get 50%, $1 trillion, $0 to $1 trillion, depending on whether I issue the permit or not. The other the deal. It just made me laugh. Okay, let's just come back to Canada, tariffs, energy. National Post says that against the threat of a crushing tariff from Trump administration, Ottawa is now entertaining the air quotes nuclear option. Look, talking about a total shutdown of electricity and oil. America is the value, and most of the time, true, but it shouldn't be that way. Retaliating with the total shutdown of electricity and oil exports into the United States. Now, you Americans are going, we don't need you guys. MAGA hates Canadians. That's what's going on here. There's no respect whatsoever. Although I think Trump is feeling like he might have went too far on that, because yesterday he referenced Canada and he goes, which is a great country, by the way. Just a great, beautiful country. It's the single most damaging thing Canada could do to the U.S. economy without 600 million liters. Awesome that we're reporting this in metric of Canadian oil crossing the border each day. Whole regions would be plunged into devastating fuel shortages. One thing that could happen, I'm going to go over time here, so I'm going to skip. They have an economist from the University of Calgary who's doing a bunch of hand wringing and says, we're going to shut this down and the Americans will quickly switch to some sort of other source of oil. Remember, we provide them with a heavy sort of a dirty oil that's super cheap. The replacements for us are Venezuela, Iraq, Iran. You energy people can tell me where else, but they're not awesome countries if you're America, whereas you have a Canadian neighbor who loves you, the U.S., even if you hate us, mega. And we want to be partners and be integrated on this sort of stuff. And so if we had Canadian leadership, you know what would be the stupidest thing in the world? It would be to cut off the U.S. from Canadian oil and Canadian electricity and force them into chaos and force them to find other solutions to replace their heavy reliance on Canadian energy. That would be stupid. Leadership should not be doing that. What leadership be doing is finding some way to do an export tariff or some sort of taxation to make it more expensive and use that funds to combat the U.S. tariffs on Canadian manufacturing. Don't starve the Americans. Make their life painful, a little uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough that they want to change, just uncomfortable enough that you know that there has been a counteraction to the tariffs on manufactured imported goods into the U.S. that we expect coming out of the Trump administration. You can combat that with energy. We can have our cake and eat it too. If only we had leadership. And the second thing we should be doing, what leadership should be doing on this issue, is creating an infrastructure plan. Why don't we, as Always Be Broke says, America is the value add most of the time? Why? Why can we not refine our own products in Canada? I'll tell you why. It's because we ship it to the U.S. cheap, and that's sort of the trade. That's the quid quo pro. Is that the right way? I think I said that properly. That's the trade for American security. We got a bunch of resources. We'll just pound them down to you cheap, and you integrate our economies and look after us in a time of war, although we should be participating in that more than we do. Well, they want to break. They want to break their end of that trade. Why should we not be looking for ways to break our end of the trade and start refining stuff ourselves? And we should be building infrastructure. We don't have pipelines. That you Americans won't believe this, but we don't really, we block pipelines from Alberta and Saskatchewan, where the oil is, east to where the population is and the manufacturing is. The people that need the energy, nope, we can't do that. And so we need to clean that all up and eliminate inter-provincial regulation and barriers, and we'll have a much better streamlined economy, and these Trump tariffs will not be an issue at all if we were to do that. Where are we here, Daniel? So the Liberal cabinet met and they issued a statement that said that they promised a full range of measures to ensure a robust response to possible U.S. tariffs. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith refused to sign the document because implied in that was they might cut off energy. The federal government officials continue to publicly and privately float the idea of cutting off energy supply to the U.S., she wrote in a statement, adding, until these threats cease, Alberta will not be able to support the federal plan, as if they have a choice. The U.S. dependence on Canadian crude has been increasingly dramatic in recent years. In 2013, Canada represented just a third of U.S. oil imports. So in 2013, Canada provided a third of imports to the U.S. In 2023, so 10 years later, it was up to 52% of the crude oil that the U.S. has came from Canada. This makes Canada the largest foreign supplier of oil to the U.S. But that's not the important part. The important part is that Canada provides what they call Western Canadian Select, Canada's main petroleum blend. It's thicker, it's more filled with impurities than the average crude oil. And so turning it into gasoline and other products, you got to get rid of those impurities. You need to refine it. Requires dedicated facilities. And the U.S. In Chicago, the Gulf of Mexico, do we call that the Gulf of America now? I'm gonna opt out of that. Have made the decisions to build special purpose refinery specifically for Canadian crude. If Canadians turn off the tap, they can't just go buy the stuff somewhere else and pump it into the same pipelines and into the same refineries. That will not work. This becomes a major infrastructure problem for the U.S. The U.S. divides its oil sector into 5 regions known as PADS, P-A-D-D-S, Petroleum Administration for Defense Districts. So there's like 5 regions. Well, Region 2 covers 15 Midwestern states, and 100% of its imported oil comes from Canada. So basically, if Alberta were to turn off the oil, this whole district would have zero oil coming to it, and the refineries would shut down. It says here that either people would cut back to using 1/4 of the gas they used to use, or they're trucking in gasoline and diesel from the rest of the U.S., and that can't be done. Not without shortages, not without price increases, not without inflation, and this is all because of the U.S. reliance on Canadian energy. You know, this entire deficit thing that Trump complains about, actually, if you removed energy flowing south, the deficit would go the other way around. We, Canadians, buy more stuff from the U.S. That is manufactured than we sell to the U.S. that is manufactured. The deficit comes from energy. Tips for hiring sounds going to be. Do you post links to some of the articles you find very interesting? I do not do that. Do you think I should? Let me know if you think I ought to be doing that in the notes. I could probably do that. I'm not that sophisticated in the morning, but if you think I ought to, maybe I can consider doing that. Now, I would say, however, that some of the stuff that I rely on is behind paywalls, and I hate telling people to go look at paywalls. Hey, Joel Chambers, thanks for joining on Instagram, and Fwads with Family joined as well. Thank you for joining us on that. Let me wrap up here. I'm over time. In her rejection of the so-called Team Canada approach, Smith reminded the rest of Canada that they helped to systemically block construction of the various export pipelines that could have given the country more leverage over its exports. Smith urged Canadians to use this tariff threat as an opportunity to correct the misguided direction of this country instead of effectively landlocking them and keeping us fully reliant on primary customers. Yes, that is exactly what should be saying. Here's the problem. The problem is this is not a provincial problem. It is a federal problem. We do not have federal leadership. This is going to boil down to what? It's going to boil down to Western energy versus Eastern manufacturing, and the premiers of each jurisdiction, the provinces in those jurisdictions, are going to have a different opinion, and there is no federal leadership because of politics to fix that problem. We need to stay on that, people. What other comments do I have to go here? Post the links on X, Instagram would be good. Even snippets with references would be fine. Got it. Let me consider that if that would be valuable to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, every day this week I've been overtime, and I don't want to get into that habit. This was supposed to be short and sweet, but apparently not. We will see you tomorrow, 8:30, right? 8:30 Mountain Time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This has been Mornings with Scott. See you tomorrow.